Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Pod Between Worlds. I'm Steve, alongside co-host Ollie, and today we're going to discuss with you Clone Wars release. We got some Mandalorian news that they've been teasing for a couple weeks now, and there's a huge rumor going around about the sequel trilogy coming in hot.
Go. All right, what do we got?
All right. How's your 4th, sir?
It was good. It was good. My brother and sister's birthday, like you know. So
Yeah,
just did a low-key birthday party at the pool, and it was fun.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. How about you?
Same thing. Low key. Just we stayed in. I mean, with COVID and everything, so
Yep.
I just stayed in and just relaxed, and it was a good 4th though. It was
Nice.
That's what this weekend needed to be, just relaxing. So
Yep. I hear you.
And there was a ton of Star Wars news this week. So
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff coming out, huh?
yeah. So if you haven't, I'll kick it off a little bit. If you haven't heard or seen the podcast that I'm doing, just on a daily basis, I'm trying to, and it's not limited to me either in that sense, but we're doing this new segment called HoloNet Live. It's basically a 5 to 10 minute kind of a news flash, informative podcast every day with Star Wars news that's coming up. Rather than getting the in-depth like we do with the current format right now, this is more of like a, hey, this is what's going on. Check it out. If you want more information, go here, or maybe like a hot take on something. But just so we can stay up to date on the news and inform you guys a little bit better. So that'll be dropping every day on Anchor, Spotify. It's just going to be podcasts for now, but I believe we're going to be moving it to YouTube as well eventually. So
Yeah, try to do little updates. Yeah. Yep.
yeah. So just wanted to make a mention of that. So look out for it's called Pod. It's under the Pod Between Worlds podcast still on all streaming services, but it's just labeled HoloNet Live. And it actually has I've been putting the date in the descriptions too. So if you're like, oh, I need to go back a couple days to see what's going on, you can do that. But yeah, just wanted to make everyone aware of that. So check those out if you want to stay up to date with the news. And speaking of that, there was a couple pieces that this week that were fairly very important in terms of canon, I would say, in one of the biggest series, The Mandalorian. So I think we'll just kick that one off. Is The Mandalorian. There was a book release. StarWars.com released an article with all these book releases for The Mandalorian. That's been like the big news that they've been dropping for teasing for the last 2 weeks, and it finally came out. And we had a chance to kind of dig into the article a little bit. So I'll kick it over to you, Ollie. What was your first impression of this? Are you excited for these books?
Yeah, I was at first like super excited because I read it wrong and I thought this was like a whole series of like novels based on the Mandalorian timeline kind of stuff. And then was like, oh, it's like information stuff. So then I was like bummed because I'm like, whatever. And then I got excited again because I didn't realize like, especially doing my like species breakdowns and stuff like that. A lot of times the visual dictionaries are really good for that. They give a lot of the background characters and what species they are. You know what I mean? So I thought that was cool. I'm also interested in the book now because like we just talked about before we started the stream, like at first I thought it was just kind of like a tie-in novel, not even a tie-in novel, just like I thought it was like the novels that they do for the movies where it's just like they're just going to write a novel version of the first season.
Yep.
But they basically came out and said that's not what it is, but they also didn't say what it is. So I'm interested to see if it's like a prequel, if it's not even based on Din Djarin, you know what I mean? Maybe it's just Mandalore in general. I don't really, it's exciting, but I thought we would get maybe like a basic summary of like, oh, it's a prequel, oh, it's this, or it's, you know what I mean? But we don't know. We just know it's not a rehashing of the first season. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, when I originally, so actually the first HoloNet Live was The Mandalorian, this news, And I actually mentioned the original novel. I thought it was going to be based off of, when I read this too, I thought it was going to be based off the show. And then
Right.
then later on read that, it's going to be an original novel in terms of the story. So I'm definitely intrigued by that to see where they go with that. Whether they keep it within the present, whether they're going to go in the future maybe, or in the past, depending on the timeline. The other thing I'm very interested in is the art of the Mandalorian and the Ultimate Visual Guide.
Right.
I don't think, I'm sure a lot of the diehard Star Wars fans know, but a lot of the technology they're using for this show is actually, it's actually groundbreaking. A lot of the stuff that they're doing. So I'm actually really interested to read up on that stuff. I know that the behind the scenes series kind of gave you a big glimpse into that stuff, especially with like the CGI and everything. But putting it into a book, it'll be pretty cool to see what's there for that. So, and then there's also the comics too. I forgot about that. The comics will be cool. I kind of felt like that would make sense just because they're doing the Bounty Hunter comics. So it's kind of like, why wouldn't you put Mandalorian one? That is, it's very much in that same vein. So definitely just excited for all of this. I mean, the Mandalorian is one of the bright spots of Star Wars right now. So it's the fact that they're pushing this now is awesome. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think the comics are cool too. Like, just the weird thing is we got season 1, right? And we're pumped about season 2. And we got all like the toys and stuff based on season 1, but the interesting part is like for how much they've developed canon around like the original trilogy timeline with comics and graphic novels and you know what I mean, like all this tie-in stuff. We really haven't seen. I mean, think of like all the stuff that they're 2-3 years down the road whenever it comes out. I mean, they're really going to develop like Cara Dune and Din Djarin and Baby Yoda and Grief Karga and you know what I mean, like all these characters that they made. Moff Gideon, right? Like all these different characters, they're gonna add those into so many. I kind of thought of it when this came out. I was like, wow, it's weird. I know it just the first season came out 8 months ago, 9 months ago, but like I feel like we would have seen Cara Dune in like a couple comics already, but we really haven't. You know what I mean? That's the only time we've seen them. So I think this is logical. I think I almost, with the High Republic and everything else going on, I just kind of forgot that they have this whole kind of area of space and timeline that's pretty much untouched right now, so I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah absolutely. I don't have any there's no release dates on any of this stuff. At least I haven't seen it, so it's just I
would guess it's around season 2. It's probably, you know what I mean,
series kicks off this fall. With releases planned through the winter and spring, so which Mando's coming out in October, so that'll be probably around the same time. So
so I wouldn't be surprised if like the visual dictionary and the art of maybe includes season 2. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then maybe the novel's like a prequel and that comes out like in tow with the season, so or something like that. But yeah, I mean it's coming out soon enough, so that's neat.
Yeah, it'll be really cool. Really excited for that, for all of that to come out. So. So moving on, we're going to go to Star Wars, The Clone Wars. So there is a novel coming out called Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Stories of the Light and Dark, which there is going to be 11 chapters. 10 of them are based off the episodes that are already out there. And then one of the stories is going to be an original Night Sisters based story.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So... I don't know if you want me to dive through all these stories or the arcs that they cover. Yeah,
if you want, or just like which ones you're looking forward to, or whatever's easiest. I mean, there's only 10, so you can list them and then tell me which ones you're.
So the first one, and this one's gonna be by Lou Anders. There's Dooku capture. It's based off of Dooku captured in the Gungan General. I believe that's the arc with the invasion of Naboo.
Okay. So they're tying Dooku into that.
Yep. So there's going to be, that's the first one. Second one is Tom Engelberger with Bane's story, based on the episodes of Deception, Friends and Enemies, The Box, and Crisis on Naboo. So, whatchamacallit? this is like a mix between Ventress and Ahsoka, I believe. So that's going to be interesting. There's Preeti Cheever, which is based on she is based off of a hostage crisis. Let's see. Ann Covery, hers is based on the episode Massacre, so that's related to the Night Sisters as well. I can't read this name. Zoraida Cordova, the Lost Night Sister, based on the episode Bounty. Sarah Beth Durst, Almost a Jedi, based on the episode A Necessary Bond. That's another Ahsoka one. Greg Van Eekhout, Kenobi's Shadow, based on the episode The Lawless. This is one of the ones I'm actually really excited for. Jason Fry, Sharing the Same Face, based on the episode Ambush. And then, let's see, we got a couple more here. So we got Yoon Ha Lee, which is doing the whole Umbara arc, which actually I watched last night because I was like, oh, I haven't watched that in a while.
Yeah.
Love that arc.
Yeah, Umbara is a cool... with Pong Krell, right? Yeah, that's a neat whole arc, I guess is the easiest way to say it. But yeah, those episodes are really neat.
Yep. Rebecca Roanhaus, her story is called Dark Vengeance, based on the episode Brothers. So you're getting back into Darth Maul and Savage and everything. And Ursu with Pursuit of Peace, based on the episode Heroes on Both Sides. So that's also that quote, I guess, Heroes on Both Sides. That's also from, I believe that's from the Revenge of the Sith, the beginning crawl, the opening crawl. I think that's just wanted to point that out. That's it. Okay, so that's basically it. I know I kind of rambled on there a little bit. So have you had a chance to look at the stories, like what they are yourself? Or
not individually, no. But I am excited for them to explore a little bit more of the Night Sisters and get a little bit more into Ventress. I think she's fascinating, and I think anything along the lines of the other Force cults, you know what I mean, like the Baron Doe and Night Sisters and any other, different Force user kind of things, I think are neat, because I think those could be developed both in the past in the High Republic, and I think they could be developed going forward in that 30-year gap, you know what I mean? With Luke. So, I just think those are neat areas to explore and really kind of open up the storyline of the galaxy. It wasn't just Jedi and Sith, you know what I mean? Those were the two in power at the time, but all these different Force sects and how they used different things. The Night Sisters are interesting too, because we've seen a decent amount of them. Like, we really haven't seen the Baron Doe sages that much, but like the Night Sisters are interesting because their version of the Force is definitely, I would say, more on the dark side, but it's very magical, right? As opposed to a lot of the other Forces. It's all magic-y kind of stuff, but it seems more fantasy magic when they use it. You know what I mean? Like something out of Lord of the Rings or something. With like instead of just like being able to manipulate objects and stuff, because that seems to be mostly, other than like Force lightning, that's kind of what the Jedi and Sith really do. Whether it's good or bad, they can move stuff, they can mind, mess with minds. You know what I mean? It's kind of like super strength. It's kind of stuff. Whereas the Night Sisters use very mythical type, like green flame.
Like witchcraft.
Yeah, which I think is neat. I think there's a place for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the darker end of like piece of the Force, but it's not the Sith way of the Force.
It's interesting to see. So, because of Star Wars and because of the main movies that we've used, we're just used to like bad guy Sith, good guy Jedi, and that's these other groups add so much more to it. You know what I mean? That they're, the Night Sisters are definitely leaning towards the dark side, but I don't know that I'd call them evil. You know what I mean? They're not trying to take over the galaxy. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that kind of thing.
You're kind of like anti-heroes in a way, kind of.
Yeah, certainly Ventress, I think Mother Talzin's probably definitely on the evil
she's
side.
definitely
But and I mean, I think they lean evil, but like chaotic neutral.
Yep. Yeah, it's that'll be I mean I particularly like the whole Ventress
Yeah.
timeline just based on because I'm obsessed with that book, The Dark Disciples. So
Right. Yep.
but like it's always intriguing because it's like you said, it's a different side of the Force that you don't see in the movies. You don't really use. It's just different. It's manipulated differently. So it's really cool.
It just adds to it. I think it's good. Yeah.
Was there any other ones that? I mean, I kind of just listed them off, so it's kind of tough. But I mean, by any of the episodes, were you like, did you recognize?
Yeah, I
right
mean,
away?
definitely like what you're saying with Umbara. Pong Krell is fascinating. So that whole Umbaran arc is definitely interesting. I'm all for any more Ahsoka. You know what I mean? But yeah, those are the ones that stand out.
Yeah, watching the Umbara arc, that one was last night. I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot like some of the events that took place and stuff. So it was good to refresh on that. But yeah, that was definitely an eye-opening arc for sure, especially from the clones' perspective too.
And I think that's one of the highlights of the Clone Wars cartoon is that you can kind of without context, you can go back and watch an arc and really enjoy it. You know what I mean? Watch 3-4 episodes for an hour and not really need to have watched before or after. You can just take it as a thing, and it's really cool to watch, which is nice.
The only other one, well, I'm interested in all of them, but the only other one was a Kenobi Shadow based on the Lawless.
Which one was the Lawless?
Yeah, just because he, I guess they're just based on what he wrote here. The author, Greg Van E. Cout, I think that's how you say it. Say he enjoyed writing a couple short scenes between Obi-Wan and Anakin that weren't in the episode, and I wanted to highlight their closeness as friends and show that Anakin's not the only Jedi who struggles with the dark side. So, just based on that, I want to read into it because you don't really see Obi-Wan from the light of, he has a tendency like not like Anakin. He doesn't have that place where he kind of does things that are like, okay, that's a little bit out of place. That's like dark side stuff. You don't really see that with Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I mean, he has his Sabine thing, not Sabine, sorry, Satine thing. But yeah, I mean, I think they're always, I think really on that side of it, Obi-Wan doesn't get an unfair shake, but he's only really compared to two people in the entire series, right? It's Qui-Gon, who's like an unorthodox Jedi. He's not dark, but he's just not the Council, so it makes him seem off the beaten path. You know what I mean? Even though I would argue that Qui-Gon's probably way more pure than the Jedi, than the Council, but the way that they frame it is not like that. And then he gets compared to Anakin, who is going to turn into Darth Vader. So Obi-Wan's compared to two people that they kind of ostracize from what the Jedi are supposed to be, right? So he's always representing kind of the idea that the prequels had of Jedi, So yeah, it'll be interesting to see his struggle with, if that's what they're referring to.
Yeah. I mean, the picture, the Lawless, I believe that was that has to do with Mandalore, I believe.
Okay.
If I recall correctly. Actually, the picture has a Mandalorian in it. I think
maybe it's Death Watch stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to
go back and check. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be the one before Satine dies, or maybe it is the episode.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I'll have to but again, this makes me want to rewatch some of the episodes, though.
Right.
I mean, to brush up on some of this stuff. So, but it's it'll be intriguing to see what these stories are. It's kind of like the same thing as like from a certain point of view, which we're going to be getting later this year as well for the celebration of the Empire Strikes Back. So it's definitely. This is definitely a release worth getting once it comes out. I believe same. I think I said August 25th.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad.
Yeah. So August 25th, this comes out right in the heels of just Clone Wars being done, finished. So if you're a fan of the Clone Wars, definitely check this out. There's as we said, there's a lot of stories here that it'll give more depth to some of these arcs for sure. So,
right.
So anyways, we're going to move forward to our big discussion. And this has to do with a huge rumor going around that Disney is planning to, and I'll just take it verbatim, Disney is resetting Star Wars and erasing the sequel trilogy. Basically, there was a video that came out on. I'm not even gonna say the guy's name. Just not going to, unless you want me to.
Yeah, I mean, give him credit. He has a lot of interesting stuff. Yeah.
All right, fine. Doomcock Overlord. There you go. His YouTube channel. He actually provided Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker spoilers, and then he also was the one that announced that there was issues with Brie Larson and Captain America, not Captain America, Captain Marvel, and that between them and Kevin Feige, which, as you know, there's no Captain Marvel coming out anytime soon, so it might be true. So basically, in his rumors, he says that Star Wars trilogy is going to get nullified, that the Rebels series, Season 4, Episode 13, A World Between Worlds, that's going to play a part in erasing the sequel trilogy or making it an alternate timeline, and that the sequel trilogy will be removed from canon as such and be put there as a different timeline. And then he also goes on to mention that there's issues between Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau, that there's kind of like a civil war going on at Lucasfilm between the two. So this is a big, wild rumor going on. It was reported by the Cosmic Book News. It was all over Reddit. It's been on Google. You can look it up. It's everywhere right now. And I think it's only I'll make this point and then I'll hand it off to you, Ollie. But I think it's just on the heels of, like, because of how the sequel trilogy played out with how the fans reacted to a lot of these movies. I think this is why this is gaining steam, just because of the Star Wars community either loving or hating these movies. So Ollie, what's I know we've talked about this a bunch. We've actually talked about this in a previous episode, but what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's really just a slight variation on a rumor that, like, has been around forever. Like Mike Zero, the clickbait rumor king, has been saying this for, like, I believe years now. So to me, it's not new. Someone recycled it and heard that. I think honestly what happened is there probably is some tension. I do believe there's probably some tension between Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy. And maybe it's not even those two exactly, but just like the story line kind of thing. You know what I mean? So whoever that may involve. So I do believe that's probably happening. It could be happening, and maybe even it should, because Favreau did a good job, and maybe he wants to move it in a direction that Kennedy doesn't want to go right now. You know what I mean? And so that's completely reasonable. I could completely believe that. I think it probably is true. It's more likely than not. I just think that the whole erasing the movies is how do I phrase? I wouldn't hate it, because it'd be interesting to see what they would do. I mean, you know me, I'm kind of open for the more content, the better. You know what I mean? Because I have the ability to kind of ignore stuff I don't like. I don't care. You know what I mean? So, like, I have a pretty strong head canon, and I go with what's out there. But, like, if they did it and they came up with something great, awesome. I just think there's legitimately 0% chance that this happens, because I'm just trying to think of it. And I'm no expert on the movie business or anything like that. But I just cannot, as much as there's people out there who hate it and they're a loud majority, just like anything else, people who are mad about something are so much louder than people who are happy about it. You know what I mean? The movie's made a cajillion dollars. And if you wanna compare, like, The Force Awakens made more than Rise of Skywalker, and, like, you can go into all this math if you want to. At the end of the day, the studio's made boatloads of money. You know what I mean?
They made $5 billion overall.
So it's like, I really don't think that. I think it's a loud minority, even if it's 50-50. I mean, I think more than I think it's a minority of people that truly hate this stuff. You know what I mean? I think it's more of a majority that are indifferent and maybe like it but don't love it. You know what I mean? And you may say that's that's condemning evidence that they weren't good. But I mean, people don't. I liked the characters. You know what I mean? There's a bunch. I mean, I like it in general. But I'm not in love with it. But I think over time I've become less in love with the movies in general. I like the canon, like the books, and you know what I mean? So like that's more what I go on. Obviously the films are like a lot of fun and they're big moments, but I almost like the stories and the other stuff better anyways. But yeah, I think it's probably, I think there's truth to it in the fact that there's rumblings and Star Wars may be moving in a different direction. I think that's 100% true, and I even hope that's true because I think Favreau has done a really good job, and I think Filoni's a big part of that. You know what I mean? So I think I like the direction that they'll go more than where it's gone. So I don't have a problem with that. But to say that I think that they're gonna, in any reasonable fashion, in the next foreseeable future, I put it at 0% that they're in any way erasing the sequel trilogy. I just don't think it's just not something that, I don't even think if Favreau completely took over, I don't think he'd even be interested in erasing it. Like, I just don't think that's realistic. But I will give us a shout out that we did talk about this a few months ago. I'll have to find the episode. And we did say, it's like they stole it from us almost. I mean, we're not the first people ever to say it, but I'm saying like the whole like world between worlds. I just brought it up as like a side. I said, look, if you really hate the sequel trilogy, Filoni set up the world between worlds. It's the perfect opportunity to do an alternate timeline like, you know, Marvel Comics and all the comics do, right? And we kind of laughed about it and said like it'd be possible, but so that's my overall long-winded take on it. I think that there's truth to that. There's probably some mixed feelings about the direction that it's going. I think that's 100% true, but I think there's 0% chance that they are using the world between worlds or any method to delete the sequel trilogy. It's just not happening. But it's fun to talk about.
Yeah.
What do you think? Because you're a little bit less, I wouldn't even say that I'm in love, but you're a little less thrilled with the sequel trilogy. So how does this like stoke your interest?
I just think from a fan franchise perspective, I just think it makes no sense.
Business-wise, yeah.
Business-wise, it doesn't make sense. Especially, I mean, they still made money off this sequel trilogy, so like, it's not even like when people are like, "Oh, you gotta look at Rise of Skywalker didn't do well at the box office." Well, if you look at overall, they still made their nut. They made billions of dollars off this shit. So
yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt, but you like triggered something in my mind. If you did erase this, right? Like. Yeah. You're not guaranteed, like, in other words, you have, let's say it's 50-50. 50% of the fan base hates it, 50% of the fan base loves it. If you erase it, okay, you are immediately pissing off half the fan base, and that's the half the fan base that's really supporting you right now and loves everything you do. And then you're going to make new movies with 0% guarantee that the people that hated you are going to like it still. So that would be the worst move ever, because let's be honest, 90% of the people that hate Star Wars now are going to hate, and not you, I'm saying but the people who chime in all the time and just hate everything that Disney does with Star Wars, newsflash, they're not going to like a new sequel trilogy either. You know what I mean? So
what you do.
Right.
It's not even like, and I'm not even on that boat. Like, I don't, obviously I don't hate what Disney's done. But I just think from a business perspective, it makes no sense. I think from a narrative perspective, yeah, it could work if they start to get into these alternate timelines, I guess.
They did set it up. It's there if they want it.
It's there. The only problem is I just still don't see how you would, unless you knew all along that this was going to come, there's nothing to me that screams to me, oh, this is the path they're going. They're going to create alternate timelines. There's nothing there. World Between Worlds is from Favreau and Filoni. It was 2018, 2017 when that came out. But like,
It's Filoni.
why?
It was before Favreau. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So Filoni. So why would Filoni put that in there if why would he put that in there thinking in the future they are going to create alternate? Okay, let me take a step back. That doesn't make sense. So I'm looking at from like the movies don't point to anything related to alternate timelines. The movies aren't even like there's nothing in any of the movies like that. So there's that piece. Then you got all the canon revolved around this stuff. And you're still building on the canon between you have Return of the Jedi to Force Awakens. You're still building on the canon on that. So Mandalorian's a part of that. So then why would you then decide, okay, we're going to make Mandalorian, we're going to make all these events, because if we're going to go with the world between worlds, let's just say it takes place, this alternate timeline takes place before New Hope. You potentially could change the original trilogy. You could change the Mandalorian, everything in between. You're going to change the sequel trilogy too. And you're telling me that this franchise is going to go in this direction and just start like creating alternate timelines on shit that they might fuck up?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look, I could write it for you now. If you just don't like the sequel trilogy and you want to use the world between worlds, it is set up for you perfectly. I'm not saying I like this, but it's set up for you perfectly. You've made Thrawn and Ezra disappear. Ezra's the only one that's been in the world between worlds, other than presumably Palpatine, maybe, and Ahsoka. Right? Yeah. Oh, that we know of. Was Yoda in one of those visions? I don't know. But we only know that Ezra's been in there, okay? Right. Assuming other people have been in there, if it exists. I don't know. But only Ezra. So you have it set up. You basically had Ezra and Thrawn disappear. There's no storyline written in the future of that, right? So basically you just have it that sometime after Return of the Jedi, after Palpatine died, right? The first time, Ezra finds a way to access in the unknown regions. He finds another temple or whatever. Finds an access to the world between worlds, and basically Ezra's put in a choice that he finds out that Palpatine survived, right? Like that he's rebuilding the Final Order or whatever, and it can be very early on, like before the First Order really takes place. And basically whatever Ezra does is he's able to sacrifice himself. He's still not strong enough to fight Palpatine, but he can drag him into the world between worlds, and basically he eliminates the world between worlds and himself and Palpatine. It's like a sacrifice moment. Thrawn knows he did it because Ezra explains what happened, and Thrawn's like, look, the Empire... Because we know that Thrawn sees the threat as the Grist, but he is in, as much as he's a villain, he's looking out for the entire galaxy. So if he thinks the Palpatine thing coming back, so Ezra sacrifices himself, Thrawn's left to tell Ahsoka when they find him, boom, Palpatine's gone, up to the Mandalorian, still all the same, right? And now you can rewrite. It changed history because now Palpatine's not there. So now Han and Leia have twins, and it's Jaina and Jason. Like, you can literally just rewrite from there. You know what I mean? You can do whatever you want. Luke isn't a vagabond. You know, there's no Ben Solo. Whatever you wanted to do. Because even though those things are unaffected by Palpatine, as with time travel most of the time, basically if you change one thing, anything else can change, right? Like, it just, like, one little thing can affect everything. So it's basically Ezra sacrifices to kill Palpatine for good. World between world implodes. It closes the world between worlds. It ends Palpatine. It ends Ezra. Boom. There you go.
Okay.
I don't love it. I'm just saying that it does. That sounds pretty. If you're going down this line of thinking, that's kind of Star Wars-y, right? If you want to solve the sequel trilogy,
I guess so.
Then there's no Rey because there's no cloning. There's no Palpatine's son. Like all that shit. It's all gone.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it makes sense.
No Snoke, right? Because it wasn't...
Snoke,
you know what I mean? Like, the whole thing is gone. And you just have the remnants of the Empire floating out in the outer regions. Maybe you write them into the Grisk. Maybe the Grisk mind control or get to them, and that's how the Grisk eventually come back. They lead with the First Order, but it's more of a brainwashed Imperial remnant than it is the official First Order, you know?
Yeah,
So if you're rewriting the trilogy, I'm here. I'm hireable.
I don't know. It just doesn't feel
It's not happening.
I know.
That's why I'm saying.
It doesn't like why. The other thing too that doesn't.
That's not too bad though. If you were gonna do this, I mean, there's a lot of problems with messing with it like this. But if you were gonna do this, does that? I mean, that sounds pretty good, right? It crosses off a lot of. It doesn't really affect anything. It crosses off some characters that you have loose ends. It uses canon. I mean, I mean, it's my idea, but I think it's pretty good. I mean, if you had to do it.
Well, maybe. I mean, didn't Legends has different. Obviously, they have different stories that aren't.
Yeah, Legends has. I don't know that I'd call them timelines, but there are stories that have inconsistencies. Yeah.
And maybe they're going that way. I don't know. It just seems way too wild. I mean, like you.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I say it the way I do is that what you do simultaneously in that version of what I said is you also get rid of the world between worlds. So you don't leave it open for a million different interpretations. You use it specifically to delete Palpatine.
Yeah.
Which deletes the sequel trilogy. And because of all the power that Palpatine has and Ezra drags him in and his implosion, or however you need to come up with the way to write that. You know what I mean? But I'm saying if you use that, the world between worlds just in itself obviously is a huge power, right? Like we don't understand it. Anything could happen. We're talking about it could erase timelines. You know what I mean? So you use it that once again. We understand that there's crazy power in there. We understand that Palpatine's crazy powerful, right? And you use that to just create this negating effect, and they both end now. World between worlds is gone. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can't use it again. So, you know, I think it'll never happen. Let me just stop there.
It's plausible, but there hasn't been a hint. Like that's the only time you see anything related to possibly.
Well, they're right. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy wasn't gonna. They're not messing with World Between Worlds, so I don't know where else there would be a hint. You know what I mean? It exists. No, that's all it needs to be. Yeah.
I'm saying from a writing perspective, there wasn't like there's nothing in the prequels that there's nothing in Star Wars in general besides that episode that talks about anything related to possibly manipulating time. In that sense.
Right. Like, no, I know. Yep.
Yeah. So that's why I find it odd, because it would be like all of a sudden now it's just like, oh, you can just, there's the alternate timeline. Oh, we can mess with it. Like, that's why I don't.
And I don't think they will. I think you're right. I'm just saying it's not the intriguing part is not the world between worlds, like in and of itself. It's that they created that before anybody was talking about erasing anything.
Right.
It's not as if they now want to erase it, so now they have to create the world between worlds, pitch it to us in a cartoon, all along us knowing that they're doing this just to bring time travel in so that they can axe the sequel series. That seems more forced, right? The reason that it's interesting is because the world between world, as much as it was unused for the craziness that could happen in there, it was created, so it's there. If you want to use it, it's there. No one's looking at it going, "Oh, you set this all up because you knew you hate." You know what I mean? It's there. So if you want to use it.
Well, the other thing too is there's nothing in the movie. Like, I feel like the movies are like that's obviously the Magnus Opus. That's what you go to for like your main story, and there's nothing of this stuff in there.
Yeah, but it's in like a lot of stuff. There's no Ahsoka. There's no.
I just don't. I mean, like, as much as like, yeah, I didn't enjoy the sequel trilogy as much as other people did. Like, I had my issues with it.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I mean, if they start getting
erasing it, right?
Yeah, erasing it doesn't make sense. Changing it, I mean, I don't think they. And this article doesn't say erase it. They do say erase it, but what they mean is making an alternate timeline.
Right.
So it's not really erasing it. But, like, erasing in the sense of maybe this is what they were talking about with what ifs. Like, making a what if scenario kind of a deal. I don't know. It's just...
Yeah, I just think, like we talked about, I think you'd have to be so careful.
Your writing has to be spot on. Like,
well, not even that. Even if you do it perfect, I just think all you're risking business-wise is making the people who still like you pissed, because even though it's an alternate timeline, they're going, well, you erased it because you didn't like it. And at the same time, you're not guaranteeing yourself, I would even argue it would be impossible, you're not bringing back the people that hate the sequel series, because most of them just hate everything right now. So it doesn't matter. Like, some of them will say, oh, The Mandalorian was good. But, like, The Mandalorian is... It's almost a genre piece in Star Wars, which is fine. But no matter how good Mandalorian is, the movies aren't going to be like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a different tone. So it's not... Even if they rewrote the sequel trilogy, I would guarantee that, like... I would guarantee a mass majority of the people who are haters now would not be fans of the rewrite. So I don't know what you're gaining by rewriting it.
The only thing I could think of that if you go down that path, if you're like, all right, we're going to make an alternate timeline, I think then my idea would be, let's poach into Legends. Let's pick out some stories that make sense. We got the Thrawn, Ezra thing still, like, well, you got Thrawn, basically.
Right.
So now you can get into, what if Thrawn really is a bad guy? What if he is actually the Emperor's gone? What if Thrawn actually makes his move into the galaxy?
I mean, look, I love talking about it, and I love the options that could come of it, because it's all just interesting stuff. I'm just saying that I think it's just the world we live in now with social media and stuff like that. The people that hate stuff are a lot louder. So if you never did the sequel trilogy the way you did it, and you went and you basically took from Legends and just made it better, there'd be just as many, but those same people would hate that. Yeah. So you're never getting those loud mouths that hate Star Wars. You're never getting them on board.
No.
So why alienate the millions of people that really like what you did? Why risk pissing them off? Because the people that don't like your shit, they're not liking it anyways. You know what I mean?
Right. On top of that, too, you gotta think they just built a whole fucking theme park.
Right? Yeah.
Based on the sequel trilogy. Like, you built a whole fucking thing on that. You can't just, if you erase the sequel trilogy, it's gone.
I just know it's like they just don't like it, because like half the people that are like, oh, the original trilogy is Star Wars, right? And they hated the prequels, and if the sequels never came out, they would still hate the prequels. But since the sequels came out and that's newer, so they're gonna hate that, they like almost kind of like the prequels now, because they're like, well, it wasn't as bad as they just the original Star Wars to them was Star Wars, which is completely fine. Stop watching the other shit.
I think
you know what I mean? Like, we talk about this a lot, but it's like, if that's what Star Wars is for you, and you hated the prequels, or you hated the sequel trilogy, or you hate Rebels, like, just watch that then. Don't watch the new stuff.
I honestly think Star Wars is at this point where the franchise is at this point. If this is true, if that Favreau and Kennedy are butting heads with the story and the narrative and everything, I think they're at a point now where it's like, all right, and this is just speculation on my part.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna throw out an example. You know, my girlfriend watched the first 6 movies. She liked the prequels more than the originals. Why? Because the originals they're dated. I mean, they've done remasters
without nostalgia.
Right. It's nostalgia. Like when it came out when we watched it as kids, we weren't like, it was still in that realm of like, it's still relevant in terms of technology and stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. Yep.
It wasn't terrible. Now you watch it and it's like, there's a big discrepancy.
Yep.
So like, between what we have now. So like, I guarantee she'll probably, like, when we watch the sequel trilogy, she'll probably like what she sees, just because it's like,
oh, I bet she'll like that more than the prequels. Yeah.
My point is that the people that watch the original trilogy, they're like, there's only so much longer before it's going to become like, oh, I was born, and like the first movies I saw was, I saw the originals, but the prequels came out when I was a kid.
Yeah.
We're in that generation. We're a little bit older than that, but like, it's going to get to that point, and then there's going to be the sequel trilogy. So at some point, Disney's going to decide, all right, are we going to keep banging the nostalgia drum, or are we going to go off and do something different with the franchise that newer fans would come to appreciate and like?
Right.
And older fans, they might be a little bit pissed off, but you have to evolve in some way. You can't just keep doing the same shit. You can't have, like, Force Awakens is literally just a nostalgia trip. Like, you can't keep doing that. it's gonna get to the point where people are like, all right, it's fucking boring.
It's the way it is with everything. So it's like a good band, right? That you like grew up with, and now you hate all their new shit, even though people love their new shit. It's just the way it is. Wait until they remake the original trilogy. Oh my god, people are gonna have a freaking conniption.
I've been saying they're gonna have to do it at some point. They can literally not leave that movie alone. Like they have.
I think that's probably the best example of where I am. Like, I love just more story, and if I don't like what happened, I don't have a problem ignoring it. Like, I don't dwell on it. So I would love them to do the alternate timeline, because I'd love to see what other vision there is for that, right? Like what a sequel trilogy could have looked like if someone else wrote it. Like, I'd be very interested in it. I wouldn't ever, it doesn't erase what happened to Rey and Poe and Finn to me. And it also doesn't make that better or worse. Like, I would take it for how it is, right? If they I would be super excited for them to remake the original trilogy. Because if they effed it up and I didn't like it, I just wouldn't pay attention to it. I go, nah, the original's I like the originals more. But if they did it, if they killed it, I'd be like, sweet. I'd love to see A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi with like really good special effects nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, imagine, I'd love it.
Like what?
Like Rogue One. Remember how much, like, just like that setting, and it just was all updated. I loved it.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
But people would go nuts, dude. They would hate it. Are you kidding me?
They'd be like, it's not the same thing. It's not Mark Hamill.
Oh my god.
It's like, that's not the fucking point. It's a fucking remake.
People would go nuts.
Oh my god, it would. But I would be fine with it. The only thing I would be wary about if they actually did that is if they change anything specific. That's just like, why?
Right. There would be dialogue changes and slightly different things and like stuff like that. But right, they couldn't. Don't change the story.
Right, exactly. It has to stay the same story. If you change it in any way, shape, or form that's going to impact canon in general,
right,
I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, that's.
I wish I had a good example. I can't think of any movies that I really like. Like Blade Runner? Was that an exact copy of the old one?
No, that was...
or Tron, sorry. Was Tron an exact remake or no?
People like Tron, I didn't get on that board. I don't...
But Tron, that's my question. I'm not asking if it's good or not. I'm just saying, like, was it an exact remake of the... Like, it was the same movie?
It was the same movie, but I didn't really like it as much. I'd never been a big Tron fan, so I can't talk.
But you've seen both. You've seen the original and you've seen the new one. Did they? My question's not if they're good. My question is, did they change anything, like, storyline wise?
Some stuff. I didn't.
Not enough to. You didn't know enough. I gotcha.
I'm not a big fan of that. So, but I mean that's actually a Disney property too, ironically. I'm trying to think. There's horror movies are usually remade. I mean, you got Halloween. You got the
right, but they must change stuff. I feel like that's a whole different thing.
They have to change stuff. Yeah. I mean, but like,
how often is there a series like Star Wars though that's not based on a book? Like, that's rare too. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, all these things are always based on books, you know?
George Lucas just wrote it. He didn't.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's super rare for that to happen, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, trying to think. I mean, there is Dune's coming out next year.
Yep, that's a good one. That's an interesting one.
That's based off a book, but there was a movie already done.
Yeah.
So it is.
But right, so see, that adds something. I don't even know if there's a way that, like, there's probably nothing exactly like Star Wars, because the Dune thing, like you're saying, is based on a book. So the first movie already had to take some liberties to the book. You know what I mean? So the second movie, the remake, could be closer to the book, further away from the original movie, but it's tough to compare. We're comparing, like, A New Hope was just A New Hope. It wasn't based on a book. George Lucas wrote it as a movie. There it is. Boom. So if you remake it, it'd be tough to take liberty. You know what I mean? You'd have to, like, remake it.
I just searched, like, top movie remakes because I was like...
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm going through. Jungle Book was one. But that's not
again, like, another one based on a book and not a... Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I'm thinking something like The Witcher, the Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings. All those are based on books. You know what I mean? They have like something that's a little bit wider canon wise and world wise, world building wise. I feel like there's probably not many movies that were just written. I think everything was taken from books.
Again, horror. A lot of horror films are redone.
Right. But do they have the world building thing that it would really matter? You know? It's interesting. Maybe it would be a unique thing. Like you'd have to like straight up remake it, and maybe it would suck because like the dialogue's probably.
Casino Royale. That's one. There you go.
The James Bond ones.
Yeah, that's one that it's a remake.
Even the James Bond thing though, a lot of them don't like they're set in the same universe, but none of them, not none of them, but most of them don't connect. You know what I mean? So even that's like a weird example.
Let's see. I'm almost at the end of the list, but I'm not seeing.
I don't think there's anything quite comparable.
There's no franchise.
Yeah, it may be hard to do because you may not be able to change anything, and then when you don't change anything, does it come off as like imitations? You know? Yeah. Because I thought Alden did a good job as Solo in Solo, but he also wasn't replaying something Harrison Ford had already done.
Right.
If he had to not only act like Han Solo, but also do the exact lines and the exact screenplay as Harrison Ford did, that could come off much more as like a bad imitation than, you know what I mean? A new take on the character. So they may have to change. I don't know. I'd be interested to see it.
It'd be like doing Indiana Jones over again.
Yeah. Which
they're not going. I wouldn't. That might be another one that they would think about. I don't know. It's very. The remakes would be cool. I know we kind of got off track with the sequel stuff.
That's all right. Well, I mean, we were at the end of the thing, right? I mean, did you have anything else?
No. I think that does it. I think that was enough banter on. That's not going to happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, holy crap, that it would make news. It would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It would blow up the whole franchise. Just don't know if it'd be a good blow up or a bad blow up, and it'd probably most likely be a bad blow up.
It would be interesting numbers wise, because if you did it, if they did it, they would not use the words erase because they wouldn't want to alienate the people who really liked Rey, Finn, and Poe. They would try to sugarcoat it like this is an alternate timeline, but they'd still do stuff with, you know what I mean? Like they'd really have to sugarcoat it because I feel like if you're a big Star Wars fan, you like the sequel trilogy, even if they did that, you'd probably go see a new Star Wars movie, right? So I think the numbers would be good, but I don't know. I feel like it's... What's that?
Was Star Trek a remake?
The movies? That's a good question. I don't know enough about Star Trek. Yeah, it was probably based... I mean, it was based on stuff, right? Because all the characters they didn't make up Nero, right? Nero was in one of them, and I think they... So maybe they just took... like Khan was in stuff, right? So I think they just took ideas, almost like... I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I thought it was something like comic books where they took a couple different versions of Iron Man and kind of made, you know what I mean? Like they took the same enemies and stuff, but they made a new story. I think that's kind of what they did.
Yeah, it's just if Star Wars was a book, like if it was based on
right, it'd be different.
If they were like, all right, we're discussing this, it would be like, okay, that makes sense because you have a book,
right?
That now you can go on all these different directions if you want to. I mean, that's
correct.
That's
but there is no book. Well, there's a book, but it was based on the movie. It's the opposite. Yeah. All right, cool.
I think that wraps it up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Pod Between Worlds. This will be up. I believe Tuesdays.
Tuesday? Yeah, we're shooting for Tuesdays. Yep.
Tuesday. So make sure to check this out on any streaming services. We're on Anchor, Spotify. They'll be up on YouTube as well if you want to watch our pretty faces on there. And as always, subscribe to our channels, or YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. And if you can, drop us a review if you like us. Those reviews help support us, so we really appreciate you guys, and can't wait for future episodes with you guys. So other than that, catch you later, Podawans.
Later.